I used to work at Disney, but this was a fair while ago now. I was working late one night and was taking 5 minutes in the employee break room. I was exhausted, but that is when I first noticed something strange. The cleaning crew had wrapped up their duties and had already left long before. I was alone with the security monitors and was just flipping through camera feeds like always, just to kill some time. I would always do this as my shift was ending, just to make sure everything was all good. It was kind of like my end of shift ritual. It just gave me peace of mind. But then I caught something on one of the cameras as I was flipping through. I was skimming, so I caught it for half a second and had to go back to confirm. My eyes were not deceiving me. I saw a janitor. There was a janitor on the feed pushing a cart through the restricted hallway, near the employee-only lockers. I thought the cleaning crew were all gone. I had watched them leave with my own two eyes. No one was supposed to be back here after hours. I didn't usually ever catch anything like this on the cameras. One time I caught some idiot kid who was trying to hide in the park overnight, but I spotted him because he could not keep quiet. Called the cops, and that was that. The janitor stopped at one of the utility closets and took a quick look around before swiping himself through. I debated calling for extra security, heck, even the cops, but I wanted to see what he was up to. I decided I would wait for him to return and then either confront him or venture down myself. The key card he had definitely did not belong to him either. I could just tell from the way he was skulking around. He must have taken it from someone else. The door he went through was just a closet for cleaning supplies and stuff, I think. Although, to be honest, I never had a real reason to go through that door, and so I'd never been in there myself. Seemed, weird though. He came back out after about 20 minutes of being gone. He brought the cart back with him, but it looked like there was something in it. Whatever it was an absolute mess and looked disgusting. He hurried back down the hall and went through another door before vanishing. Didn't catch him on any of the cameras, so it was obvious he had done this before and knew the right blind spots. I decided to go and check it out. Call me crazy, an idiot, whatever, but I just felt like I needed to see what he was up to before escalating the situation. I had no problem reporting him, but if there was something else going on, it was better to know before he went back and had a chance to hide it. I left the monitors behind and made my way down the hallway. I made sure to check if there were any other people around, just in case someone was watching or that janitor was returning. There seemed to be no one in sight, so I followed his footsteps and swiped myself in using my keycard. I walked in and lo and behold, it was just a regular-ass storage closet for cleaning supplies and the like. I mean, it was roomy, definitely bigger than any other closet I'd seen, but it didn't look out of the ordinary. There was no camera in here, so I could not see what he was doing when he came in. I almost just turned back right then, but I spotted something in the corner, covered up by metal shelves on wheels and junk on them piled high. I only saw it because I saw the blinking light, a green blinking light. I pulled down all the old used up spray bottles and packs of cloths, and then moved everything out of the way. There was a door, more like a crawl space really. It was just a square hole, but it had a key card connected to it. This one was still green. The janitor must have forgotten to lock it, I guess. This is especially strange because these locks were designed to lock themselves the second the door is shut. Perhaps this one wasn't fitted by Disney and is faulty as a result. I opened it up, and there was barely enough space for me to fit through. It was dark as fuck, but luckily I had a flashlight on me, which I switched on once I managed to wriggle my way through. I came out into what I can only describe as like a stone passage. Just a tiny little space before a left turn, with stone steps descending deeper than the flashlight could illuminate. I hesitated at first, obviously, but eventually I made my way down. The stairs went on for what seemed like an age. It must have been way below the park and all of the buildings. It made me wonder if maybe this park was built on top of another, maybe an original one that they eventually expanded. That is just pure speculation from me, as I don't know that much extended history about Disney and its parks. I know that there are tons of tunnels and utilidors, because I use them, duh. but this was way below them. There were tons of corridors and rooms, and it was almost like a maze with how many there were. This must be where the janitor came to, but I didn't really understand why. I walked through, again all just made of stone, and all of the doors, if you could call them that, were more reminiscent of jail cell doors. Metal bars separating rooms with piles of trash scattered everywhere. Old Disney merch, old mascot uniforms, rotten food in the corners of some of the rooms. Looked like a place to just dump shit and just let it be forgotten. I could go on and on about the scattered trash and old memorabilia I spotted when searching through the rooms, but at some point, I heard a crash. It sounded like something metal had hit the ground, and took a few seconds to completely stop. It frightened me to death, and I thought I had torn a hole in my pants with the amount of shit that flew out. Not literally, of course. I debated running back up for my life, but part of me wanted to know what was going on down here. Maybe the janitor had come back down, but through a separate entrance, and if he had, I wanted to confront him. I wanted to know what the fuck he was doing so I could do my job and bust him, and maybe sweeten my paycheck if the higher-ups are feeling generous, which they usually aren't, but either way I gotta do my job. I crouched down and slowly made my way further down the corridor I was in. I turned off my flashlight so I wouldn't be noticed, but holy fuck, it was impossible to see. I rounded the corner to my right and could just make out a big room at the end of a shorter corridor. Again, not a proper door, but metal bars and a metal door. I could not make anything out, but I could have sworn it was where the sound had come from. I waited for maybe 5 minutes in pure silence, and nearly decided to just write it off as a trick of the mind, or maybe, I don't know, a draft. But then I started to hear faint sounds. It wasn't loud, but sounded like a mixture of wheezing and something else maybe. It sounded coarse and full of mucus, like the person making the sound was dying of dehydration. Then I heard faint scratching on the stone floor. Something or someone was in there, scratching on the floor. I wanted to go in, to figure out who it was, but I was so scared. Disney employees, even security, are not permitted to carry any type of weapon. No firearms, no batons, not even anything like mace. I'd obviously had self-defense training, and fancied myself in a fight because I'm not a small guy, but you just never know. I decided to just try and sneak closer. I probably spent another 5 or 10 minutes, just ever so slowly shuffling along the floor, while crouched down, trying my hardest not to make a sliver of noise. My glutes were on fire by the end of it. I got close enough to be able to make the door out a little more clearly, and it was opened up. I stopped at the doorway, and tried my best to focus my eyes in the dark to make something else out. It was then that I got another fright. While I was crouched there, homing in on the inside of the room, I felt hot breath on my face. Just for a moment, but it was unmistakable. It was putrid and moist and smelled like death. Like I said, it was only for a split second, because the instant I felt it, I screamed louder than I ever had before in my life and recoiled backwards. As I was recoiling, I instinctively flicked on my flashlight and caught just a blur of something moving quickly on all fours back into the room and around to the left. My heart was pounding, but I guess in a daze of adrenaline, I crawled towards the room and told myself I would take just one peek and then I would run. I had to see what the fuck was down here so I could tell my bosses. It probably took me another 5 minutes to get back to where I was, shaking all the way. I peeked my head around the corner using my flashlight to illuminate the entire room. It wasn't just one. There were 3, but they were cowering. There were 3 humans down here. They looked horribly malnourished and deformed, with sagging and wrinkled, disgusting skin, but they were definitely human. They were huddled up in a corner together, shielding their eyes away from my flashlight and hissing at it whenever it hit them. I really had no idea what the fuck I was witnessing. I called out to them and asked them if they were okay. I got no words in response, just hisses and grunts and gurgles. One of them had no teeth, and it was clear that his eye had been poked out by something, or lost. Another had welts all over his back that I could see while he turned and cowered. It looked like someone had been merciless with a cat o' nine tails. I stood up now, because I felt less threatened. I tried to get a little closer to reach out my hand, but when I did, The ones who did still have teeth bared them at me and hissed. I used my flashlight to look around the room. There was feces scattered in different corners. I spotted a plate in one of the other corners that looked like it had some type of meat, but it didn't look like anything I had ever seen. I felt pity and disgust and confusion all at once. There was no use trying to talk to them anymore, so I went back the way I came. The only thing left for me to do was to tell my bosses somehow. I had probably made my way about halfway up the stairs when I ran into the janitor. He looked like a deer in headlights, got in a real panic real fast, started rapid firing questions my way about what the fuck I'm doing, how I got here, and blah blah. My mind just blanked, and all I could think to say was, I saw them. This only made him panic more. I tried to ask him who they were and why they were down here, but he could not focus. He told me to forget what I saw or that he would hurt me. He pulled out a knife as he said this, more like a scalpel than a knife. I told him to calm down, but it was no use. He held the scalpel out towards me and started slowly advancing, so I had to walk backwards down these massive stairs slowly. He started welling up with tears in his eyes and almost begging me not to tell anyone. I said I wouldn't if he just told me who they were and why they were there. He stopped advancing when I said this. I had my hands up the whole time, like I was being held at gunpoint. He told me he found them, that this entire area is not on the maps, but he found it one day while cleaning. Told me that it was fully locked up and you needed a security keycard to access, but higher clearance than his janitor one would allow. Said he got curious, so he borrowed one from a friend. Found this whole place, but didn't know what it was for. Said when he came down he found those three alive, but fucked up. Basically as fucked up as what I saw. Said he got scared at first, but then realized it was them that was scared of him. They had obviously been locked down there, but he didn't know if it was on purpose or neglect. Said he had no idea how long they survived for, or how up until that point. Until he saw the bones, the rotting flesh, the carcasses of rats. Said they must have been feasting on something before he went down there. He told me the higher-ups did not believe him and reprimanded him for going somewhere he was not supposed to have access to. Then, after punishing him, told him he made it up, that if it was not on the map, it did not exist. He tried to argue, but he was told that he would be sued for levying such serious allegations against a company with as much stature as Disney. So he started coming down and feeding them, making sure they weren't dying. He said he wanted to somehow rehabilitate them so that he could take the company down. Said he tried to take them upstairs at first, but the light was too painful for them. They would always run back down, screaming and grunting. They had been isolated for so long, they could not function outside of the dark anymore. And then he got caught, and this time they fired him. So he took to sneaking in after dark, learning all of the blind spots, and hiding out in the park until the coast was clear. Said he had been doing it for a few months now. It's insane that I never caught him. While he was telling me all of this, I noticed his guard had dropped. I took my chance. I sprinted at him while he was talking, and managed to grab his wrist and push him out of the way before he could slice me. He tumbled down a few steps, but not all the way. I had never been so frightened in my life, and just wanted it all to be over. This has already been so long, so I will try and wrap it up. You obviously will not have seen anything in the news about this, because that is not how Disney operates. I called my bosses and explained everything, who in turn called the police. I told them all about the guy and his involvement. Police found him still down there, and he took the rap for everything he claimed that Disney did. Police charged him with locking those guys down there and isolating them and making them all fucked up. The feral people, or whatever you want to call them, ended up dead. Police shot and killed them when they saw them. Said they tried to attack them. With how messed up those guys were, no one was going to doubt those cops. I heard he got life in prison. They gave him quite a few charges, but I can't remember them all. I only know all of this because I had to give testimony in a private courtroom with just the bare minimum people. Disney got off scot-free. Their problem was solved, and everything was kept under wraps. They promoted me to head of security for a section of the park, but the race probably was not worth all of the extra duties. The underground place got filled in and sealed off last I heard. I don't know how much of what the janitor told me is true, and I still have more questions than answers, but that is my story to the best of my ability. Any ideas on what the fuck was going on down there, X? Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. Spooky story from the Cascade Mountains. Be me and 3 friends go to Hidden Lake. Google it. End up not sleeping at the lookout. Coming down as sunsets, beautiful mountains, wonderful day. Dark. We only have headlamps and phone flashlights. Oppressive feeling, nothing malicious. Dark woods in a mountain spooky. Driving down the 5-mile, very shitty forest road. Still air, no wind. Ferns along the road are spinning. Imagine if they had a string tied to the end of them and were being yanked so fast that they kind of spin. Spinning around fast. Some areas are all spinning, some only a few spin, some none. We are tired as balls and cracking jokes about it. And oh, the fairies, oh, the gnomes, oh, the skinwalkers and Bigfoots. Halfway down, ferns are spinning like mad in the headlights of the car. Going about 5 miles per hour because car not lifted. A fucking sapling falls from the woods and breaks over the car. We stop and get out and take it off the car. Ferns spinning still. Feel spooked, no malice, just this strange air of wonder and a feeling to keep moving. Don't touch the ferns. We all look at each other and decide to just leave. Drive down. Ferns stop spinning about 3/4 of a mile from the exit to the scenic highway that leads back to the main road. Stop and get snacks in town. Beautiful little valley town by the river. Very nice store. Totally Bigfoot magic though. Also, if you believe in the Bigfoot structures, I've seen them in the woods here. 8 to 15-foot trees uprooted, jammed into the earth upside down, in rough teepee shapes, always jaggedly broken, sometimes uprooted for the smaller ones. If you ever see an uprooted and impaled tree or teepee structure, yeah, guess who made that? I'm a little bit Cherokee on both sides of the family. My great aunt on my mother's side was in the WNBA and managed to make a decent amount of money. On top to that, she got a bunch of free shit for being Cherokee. She had a rather large house in the middle of nowhere, next to my great-grandmother's in Colgate, Oklahoma, on Indian land. Much, much further south, so this place had woods and rivers. My great-aunt, first off, was completely insane, and my great-grandmother was pushing 100, so take from that what you will. We visited every Easter. I could not have been much older than 10, and didn't really listen to the adults, but I was told several times that I was not to let the dogs out, or go outside without an adult this year, because something big was around in the woods. My mother would later tell me that both of them had been hearing this strange howling out in the fields, and found odd footprints in the mud next to the house, and my aunt had insisted that things kept hitting the window. My great-grandmother had the same experience, and had actually been staying in my aunt's house for the past few days. So I hear the howling, no big deal. First few nights, that is all it was. One night I was on the patio, huge empty room surrounded by windows facing the fields. Hear howling really close, so I turn on porch light to see if I can see any eyes or anything. Dogs start going batshit and running in circles barking. Mud hits the window right in front of me. Scared me so bad I couldn't scream. Don't remember the rest, but my mother told me I cried for like an hour because I thought it was a monster. Just a few years back, I heard about the Boggy Creek monster for the first time. It's kinda like a Bigfoot. My aunt's property backs right up to Boggy Creek. Let me preface this by saying I am not a believer in Bigfoot. I don't go squatching, nor do I really think there's a giant ape living in the North Woods. The story is from my father, a nice man, who's a bit country for his own good, but is brighter than the average person will give him credit. Definitely the skeptical kind of guy. That's what makes this story even more strange. When he was around 30, I would have been, I think, 3. He was driving in the backwoods, back to our first house, in the middle of nowhere. It was twilight, just enough light to still see deep in the woods on either side of the road. As he was driving, something caught his eye, and much to his surprise, he saw someone running through the woods. He slowed down. After all, no one else was on the road, to get a better look at whoever it was, but they ran so fast, he couldn't really catch what was going on. While he was still a little weirded out by this, no one lived in that area, and while it could have been a hunter, why on earth would they be running so fast? He just kept driving. It got dark fast, and only a few minutes from our crappy little house, he saw something jump in front of his truck. My dad said he assumed it was a deer, but after he reached a full stop, he swears up and down what he saw peeking at him from across the road was Bigfoot. He did not get a great look at him, but he said it was massive. He was so scared he locked the doors and sped away as fast as he could. I actually never heard the story until I was a sophomore in high school. At dinner one day, I mentioned how I had gotten into an argument with another student, because the other student believed in Nessie and Bigfoot, and I was laughing about how silly that was. I was surprised when my dad got quiet and didn't give much more than a grunt. When I asked about it later that night, he told me about it. He said he didn't believe in much, but now he does believe in Bigfoot. I think that's why he ended up moving from that old house. I haven't told this story on here in a good few years, and even prior to that, I've only told it to a very few people I know personally. It's only one of the truly strange encounters I've ever had, and I still get majorly creeped out thinking about it. Around 2013, myself and 2 buddies went camping in Scrubland in rural Victoria, Australia. The particular area we were camping on was owned by family by one of my mates, and a few of his family came with us as well. His family stayed in a small, unpowered cabin in the dead center of his property, while we roughed it in a medium-sized tent, about 300 meters away from the cabin in the scrub, in a small clearing. We wanted to keep our distance from the others for our trip, hence why we decided to pitch our tent that far away. We set up our tent not long after we arrived, and decided to explore a bit before dark. For context, the property sits against state-owned bushland and blue gum plantations, with many creeks and washes snaking through the area. We walked for a little while to a dirt road that leads up past the property to a creek with a small cement bridge crossing it. We decided to clamber down the side of the creek bed to the water, which was only just flowing, and follow it upstream. We follow it for a while, trying to avoid accidentally stepping on a tiger snake or getting covered in leeches. In the mud, not far from the water of the creek, we find the partially buried remains of an animal. Looking back, likely a kangaroo based on the size of the bones. Creepy, but the 3 of us think nothing of it in that moment. Why it was up the creek this far and partially buried, I have no idea. The area is not subject to flooding, and I doubt a local would go to the effort of moving roadkill this far. Anyway, we continue up the creek and find another pile of bones and rotting meat sticking out the side of the creek bed, covered in branches. This time, we find it odd. The stench was strong and foul, so we decided to turn back. The creek was getting a little hard to follow, with the brush getting thicker. We walked back the way we came, passing the first lot of bones we saw earlier, and then clambered back up the creek bed to the small bridge. We didn't notice it before, but the stench from the rotting animal upstream seemed to follow us all the way back to the bridge. It was so foul, it made your eyes water, a very sharp, sickly smell. We decided to head back and meet up with my mate's family before we head over to our tent for the night. A few hours pass by, and now it's about 8 p.m, still just light out, and we have set up a small fire by the tent. We cook up some bacon and eggs, typical Aussie camping food. By the time we're done eating, it's pitch dark outside, and we decide to try and catch some sleep as we plan to do a big kayaking trip in a river nearby. We all get in our own sleeping bags, but the tent isn't all that large, so we are pretty much shoulder to shoulder, but none of us really minded at the time. It was a little uncomfortable on foam sleeping mats though, and none of us got very restful sleep. I don't remember falling asleep, but in the middle of the night, I was awoken by footsteps. Odd, I thought, as the family who was staying in the cabin, some 300 meters away, were elderly, or very young. Why would they walk all the way out here to our tent in the dead of night? And I didn't see any torchlight. I checked my watch. Around midnight. The footsteps were faint, but the night was rather still, and I could hear them crunching around in the dark, slowly moving past our tent. I had trouble sleeping, and so laid there, awake, listening. As I'm drifting back to sleep, I'm jolted awake by a deep, guttural growling. It absolutely scared the shit out of me. I felt completely paralyzed in fear. The growling got louder, then turned to more like a series of deep, low barks, almost like deep laughter. I jostle my friends next to me awake, but say nothing. The two of them bolt upright in their sleeping bags, only barely visible by the moonlight coming through the tent walls. The sound stops. Footsteps start again, coming closer to our tent. They were heavy, and had some delay between each step, as though whoever or whatever it was moving slowly, carefully, choosing each step. For added context, the only animals I know that are found in the area are possums, koalas, and kangaroos. Probably foxes and rabbits too. For those unfamiliar with kangaroos, when they hop at a full sprint pace, it can sound like a human running. This sound was not like that. It was heavy and almost methodical. The steps stopped. I'm not sure how far away from the tent, and whatever it was, started growling again. It was deep, guttural, and raspy, and slowly began changing pitch before it finished with a loud, echoing hoot or holler. We were all silent, sitting up in our sleeping bags, facing the way the sound came. We didn't hear any more footsteps, but the brush was rustling softly where the call came from. The forest was silent for a while, and we started to whisper to each other. Lots of cussing and "what the fuck was that" was said, as quietly as we could. One of my friends, bless his heart, was so taken by the sound, he just had this wide-eyed, pale look on his face, and he never said a word. Out of nowhere, while we whispered quietly, we heard another deep sound that ended with another loud and echoing hoot or bark in the distance, far out into the scrub, as if an answer back to whatever was sitting out near our tent. We fell silent. The footsteps near us started again, and they began to pace around our tent. Slowly, whatever it was made a full circle around us, deeply growling and gurgling to itself. It's hard to explain these sounds in words, but it was unlike anything I've ever heard before or since. Nothing like the usual koalas or possum chatter. The footsteps would continue, then stop, before it called out again, only for a response to call back from what we assumed to be a few hundred meters deeper into the forest. Occasionally, in the distance, where the other thing was calling from, we would hear a large crash or bang, like a rock or branch being hurled against the foot of the tree or the ground. It would echo and fade, like the hooting and barking. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, the footsteps grew further and further away until we couldn't hear them anymore. I checked my watch, and it's only just past 1 a.m. It felt like we were sitting listening to us be surrounded for hours and hours. We still heard a call or two in the distance, but it eventually faded away, and the forest was silent again. All three of us were obviously pretty shaken, and we slept very little, if at all, the rest of the morning. Eventually night came, and we got out of the tent, tentatively, had our morning piss, and packed the tent down as quickly as we could. We were mostly silent, not really in the mood yet to discuss it. We had a quick look around the area, which we heard the footsteps and strange sounds, but found no evidence of tracks, not to our knowledge at least, as the ground was well covered in fallen leaves and bark. We walked our stuff back to the cabin, and hung around for a while until my mate's family got up. We made coffee, not that we really needed it. We were still wide awake from the events earlier in the night, and spoke quietly about what happened. We were sure it wasn't a kangaroo or koala, as we had all heard the sounds they made on other trips outdoors. It was like nothing any of us had heard before. I even struggle to this day to find recordings online, even when searching for more paranormal answers. When the other woke up and came out of the cabin, we coyly asked if they had heard any noises during the night. They didn't, of course. Not much happened after this. We got packed and headed out, did our kayaking trip, on very little sleep, might I add. I'll admit, the three of us did keep looking over our shoulder into the bush beside the river as we went upriver, pretty paranoid from the night before. My two friends have since showed little interest in discussing the events of that night since then, and often shut down the conversation about what may have made the sounds. To this day, I still don't have an answer. I don't like to jump to the cryptid answer, but I'll admit, it has crossed my mind many times. Bigfoot, Yahweh, whatever, I'm not sure. It's a big jump to put a name to something that we never saw. Has anyone else had a similar experience in Australia?